Right. Yeah. So I will kick us off. I will begin with an administrative review, starting with the notification that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the YouTube channel. We have a sign-in sheet near the front of the table in the room. For those in the room, for those online, we'd appreciate you enter your name and affiliation in the chat. Or you get the spell right in our attendance thing. For those in the room, most of our attendants are online. So please direct your conversations towards the middle of the room. This owl on the center table is the eyes, ears, and voice of everyone attending online. And with that, I think we're ready to hand it over to Rob.
Welcome everybody to our meeting this month. We're going to be talking a little bit about the advanced, what's called the AMP system, the advanced modular pretreatment system today. We've asked for this. We also had at one point, there's a mock-up of this down at Vantech. And originally we planned to, after this meeting, go have some lunch or something and go down and take a look at the mock-up. And it's very illustrative. I'm going to try to push again for a quick walkthrough on the mock-up in the June meeting. So we can work that out then, and maybe people's travel arrangements and things like that will be more booked out. And so, but it's a real exciting time now because this is really what I feel is our first real attack on the West Farm. You know, it's kind of been, all of our attention's been focused on the east tanks. And you know, yeah, we're putting barriers and things of that sort. But anyway, this is a real progress step, get the amps working there. So that's real important today for us. We're also going to talk some feedback about if you felt you got a complete presentation, if there's something else you want to learn. If you're now maybe more interested in seeing the mock-up, and that would be nice. The other thing is we need to start putting our thinking caps on and decide what we want to do for our next work plan. Our work plan will start formulating really today. I have a short briefing on what we've accomplished on the 2025 work plan and what we're going to be looking for 2026. So with that, we're going to end up with our briefing. And so who is our briefer?
Janet, you want to run through introductions?
Sure. Janet D. here, I'm the Advanced Modular Pretreatment System Federal Project Director. I'd also like to introduce a couple of people. Sorry, I'm hot. So over here you have Randy Havner. Randy's responsible for the AMPS process modules. Brent Peterson is our primary lead for the AMPS project. And then this is Bridie Miller. She supports us with project controls and a lot of other things.
Josh, you wanting to go around the room and okay. And Janet, you can come sit up here next time if you want. I can sit in the back.
So, introduce our presenters around the table. My name is Josh Patnod, support the access location effort.
I'm Rob Davis, chairman of the committee, and I have to apologize for my assistant vice chairman's not here. He's on vacation. So it's nice. The name Rob Davis. I'm from, I represent the city of Pasco, and I report to the city council.
Susan Coleman, represent public at large.
Jan Larson, Benton County.
Matthew Campbell, CTUAR.
Chandra Flores, facilitation.
Laura Caulfield, Catline.
Jen Colborn, DOE, Federal Coordinator in DDFO.
Ryan Miller, Ecology.
And going down our list online, give you all an opportunity to open your microphones and introduce yourself, starting with our guest on the phone.
Dan Solis, member of the public. Good morning.
Cynthia?
Yes, Cynthia Bounds with HMIS.
Mackenzie?
Mackenzie Dubois Killoy Street Legal.
Dana,
Hello, Dana Cowley with HMS Communications. Thank you.
Moises,
Moses Guevara with the Ecology.
Matt,
Matt Hendrickson, Oregon Department of Energy.
Jim,
Yeah, hi, Jim Warner, former DOE official and started as a contractor for DOE in 1986 and just left federal service a few months ago and now doing a little consulting.
Kevin, see you, but you can't hear you. Larry,
Good morning, Larry Brandt, member of the HAB, but not a member of this committee.
back to Kevin.
Kevin Danby, representing Grant and Franklin counties.
Liz,
Liz Matson with Hanford Challenge. Good morning, everybody.
thanks. Joan,
Joan Lucas with H2C Communications.
Dan McDonald,
Good morning. This is Dan with Ecology.
Dana,
Dana McFadden with Ecology.
Mia,
Hi, everyone.
Good morning. I don't know if I said Megan or Mia.
I'll start with Mia, then go to Megan.
Josh, it's a little hard to hear you when you pronounce some of the names, just so you know. As an example, this is Mia Burke with Hanford Challenge.
Megan,
Good morning. This is Megan Tripp with Department of Energy.
Rob Parmalee, Rose,
Good morning, Rose Ferry, Yakima Nation Environmental Restoration Waste Management Program and Tribal Historic Preservation Officer.
Simone,
Morning, Simone Anter, Columbia River Keeper.
finally Michael.
Hi, this is Michael Turner with HMIS Tri-Party Agreement.
Thank you, everyone. And that serves an example of how many people are in attendance online, so I'll do my best as well to make sure we're enunciating towards the center of the room. All right, and we're back to you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, gotta get my glasses on. I just wanted to tell you all, thank you very much for having us today. It's an honor to speak to you today. As I mentioned, we've got Brent Peterson, who's going to be doing tag teaming with me as we go through the slide deck. And then we will have a slideshow for you that I think you're going to find very interesting. It shows when we're out in the facility and we can see the energy from the people that are part of that. So with that, the briefing purpose today is what is being briefed. So we're going to give you a status of advanced modular pretreatment system. And the second status, if somebody wants to move forward, thank you. What we have done is we've approved the alternative, which is 2 process modules for 4 columns. That's different than TSCR. So it's bigger. AMPS is bigger than what tankside cesium removal was. The TSCR operations will continue to be extended. And we have decided between Delmar Noyes and myself to defer installation of a 3rd AMPS module. So what we want to do is run it, initiate, and then determine if there is a need to bring in a 3rd module. What would we like to have from the Hanford Advisory Board today is this is information only and no advice is requested. The next slide is the waste treatment and immobilization plant, the LAW facility melter needs. So we have the production requirement that we need to feed the 2 melters in the low activity waste facility. Number two is the design capacity to produce 30 metric tons of glass per day by 2 melters operating in parallel. Then we have the maximum glass composition rate for sodium oxide of 21 weight %, and then meet the acceptance criteria for the treated low activity waste melter feed, which is identified in the ICD 30 interface control document for direct low activity waste feed. For next, the key performance parameters, I'm going to turn that over to Brent.
Thanks, Janet. So the project really, what are you paying for on the projects? These are the key performance parameters that we're buying essentially. So like Janet said, we're trying to feed the bit plant, 2 melters, supply them with enough feed to keep them going. So the quantity, the first key parameter is the quantity. So 2 process modules. I believe that's going to be sufficient to feed both. What's the processing rate for each module? So we have to have each module and the infrastructure capable of transferring and pre-treating 5 gallons per minute to the bit plant. So Tisker is operating 5 gallons a minute. We would do a similar process, but we have some optimization that we're implementing in for amps. Another key parameter is filtration. So we will do a similar technology as Tisker, essentially the same. We'll use a MOP Media Grade 5 filter that removes the suspended solids, which allows the fluid that contains the cesium to kind of flow through the ion exchange system. And so that last parameter is removing the cesium. So ion exchange columns, we have 3 in Tisker. We're going to add a 4th. That's one optimization that we're doing, and you have some longer runtime benefits and more settling time. So those are the 4 key parameters that we're implementing for amps.
So this is our site plan. I'm going to stand up and hopefully not be in anybody's way. The first thing I plan on to show you guys is what is existing. And so if we go over here, AP 106 is existing. Our AP farm is existing. Our AP 107 is existing. Our AP 108 is existing. Our AMPS control room is existing. Let's see if I forgot anything. I think that's pretty much it. So this is a bigger layout than what you would ever see from tank side cesium removal. So we have our pumps and our jumpers. We have our pipe and pipe transfer lines, so there's no hose and hose transfer line like there was for Tisker. These are our 2 big process enclosures. Right here is our forklift. Then we've got our E-house, our ion exchange weather closure, our concrete plant, the change trailer, and then very important is we have a corridor with emergency showers. And then we have the ancillary enclosure with emergency showers. Typical there will be 2 locations. And then this is our hall, our IXG hall. Next slide. So some of the capabilities and design advancements. So many of you are definitely familiar with the tank side cesium removal. So we have the AP tank farm, the product, the waste tanks, our interfaces with the waste treatment plant, process operations, our crystalline media and column size, and it was a modular approach. So you can see that to the upper January 2021. Those had those system bays open. So what we have now with AMPS is we have a much larger footprint. We have multiple process units, weather protected egress supporting donning and doffing of personnel, protected equipment. Like I mentioned, our 4 ion exchange columns, our pipe and pipe transfer lines, and hose and hose transfer lines. And now we will be in what's called 24/7 operations. So a lot of the things that we learned is with Tisker, it is a demonstration project. But what we did is when we got in there, the room, there was just not sufficient room whatsoever for those people to work. So we've been working with a Von Tech here the last several weeks And yesterday we brought in a lot of people to take a look at what the opportunities are. And we have set our path forward. So I think we're in good shape with the advanced modular pretreatment system and making it a bigger opportunity. We had over 200 lessons learned that we went through line by line, and that has been beneficial as well. So the next slides, I'm going to turn those over to Brent.
All right, thanks, Janet. So just to kind of piggyback on what Janet said, TWST did really the main purpose is to prove the technology works, and that's the filtration and exchange column system. So those work under TWST, we're going to continue to leverage that technology for amps. So with a few other things that she described. So one was, additional space. So if you look at the top left there, there's a chart of the sizing of TWST and the planned sizing for amps. So amps is looking like we're going to be a couple feet taller, about 10 feet longer, and twice the width. So that kind of gives us a larger footprint. With that larger footprint, we're able to separate the module into 3 spaces. So we'll have a vestibule, process area, and instrument gallery. So there's benefits to have that segregation. The process area, you can see they have the 4 unexchanged columns with the kind of yellow. It's probably the easiest to see that yellow hoses connecting to it. There's some optimization there. To the left of that, you have a couple of filters. Those are going to be larger. There's some improvements and optimizations with that. And then all the way to the right is the delay tank. So that's the high hazard area. There's that vestibule. If the workers come out of the exit area, they can doff in that space. There's a window they can kind of communicate and transfer items through the wall there. And then the instrument gallery, there's some things we can do there that are outside of the high hazard area that we can do maintenance at more optimal times. So in general, we're not quite 3 times bigger footprint wise than TWST, but it's fairly close. Next slide here, we'll kind of touch on, what's the improved operability versus TWST. So that additional ion exchange column, what does that buy us? We get it longer run times, so bigger batches that we can process before we have to shut the system down. We did increase the number of filter elements in the larger filter vessel. That allows for some wider ranges of flow rates to be processed. Why is that a benefit? Well, if you slow down, if we have enough capacity in AP106 and we have a little time, we can dial down the flow rate, and that improves our CST utilization. So how much cesium can be absorbed into the column before we do a change out. So there's a big benefit to that, since the ion exchange columns are, they're fairly expensive, each one, but getting better utilization out of those is a huge benefit. And the larger filter vessel also reduces the amount of waste returned back to the double shell tanks. So the larger vessel, once again, helps for those longer batches. Longer batches relates to fewer back flushes to the tanks. So that does help us in the long term as well. On the next slide here, we have some improved maintainability versus TWST. So that additional space around the vessels will help support more efficient maintenance outages. So if we're reducing that outage, we can get back up and running into those longer batches again. So that's all part of, trying to get the most out of these 2 modules to support the bid plan. Improved worker access. You can see from the layout, it's a lot more space. We have done an evaluation to look at the potential leak paths, and so we're minimizing any of that in design. So when we're operating, those potential leak paths are minimized. Increasing accessibility in valves, instruments, and that instrument gallery. That was another space that we kind of carved out to improve that operation. And that area is outside of the high hazard area, so there's some benefits to that. The last slide here is the ancillary enclosure arrangement. So that's kind of the a support structure that has a lot of our ancillary equipment. So we have the caustic tank that supports displacing the waste. We have an air compressor that helps with blow down of the system, the reagent tanks, safety shower, that sort of thing. So, we got a little bigger on the bottom right there, that table. We got a foot taller, 10 feet longer, and another foot or so wider. So that one increased footprint wise close to 2 times. So it's not a huge increase, but the nice part about all of these is that they're modular in nature. We can fabricate them off site. We can put them on a truck, send them out to site, land them, hook them up to the site infrastructure, pipe that Janet mentioned. So it's really an efficient way to deploy a system that in an efficient manner.
So the key takeaways is we continue to work very closely, of course, with the waste treatment plant. And that even delivery date continues. Every day it seems like it's getting closer and closer, so that's exciting. The AMS team is working with the same 2 architectural engineering teams that supported TSCR. That is another benefit. They have the history with us and we have the history with them. And then the AMS is in the preliminary design phase, and we will complete final design by the end of this year in 2025. And with that, that's all we got.
Do we have a video you want to share?
Yes.
Get that up in just a moment.
So hose configuration as it is, out of your guys' way.
Oh, yeah.
Building it better. That's what engineers and those who will be working in the new waste processing modules are trying to do. This mock-up of the proposed facility helps workers gain valuable insight into what improvements are needed.
Space. Big one is space.
Industrial hygiene technician Pat Lauterbach has worked in the tank-side cesium removal system, or TSCR, process enclosure since it began operating 3 years ago. He says the design for the new process modules will allow for easier monitoring.
When there's a wall of people in there trying to get in, it can be very tough because there's just not a lot of room in TSCR itself. So space is going to be huge for making our jobs a lot more efficient.
This blue line on the ground represents the end of where the TSCR unit was. So we've added an additional several feet into the process module, plus a staging area that we're calling a vestibule.
Engineering manager Laura Cree says there were more than 200 lessons learned documented from TSCR operations. The design for future process modules takes worker concerns into account.
And they're sitting there looking at where the columns or where the hoses will be located and how they're connected so that they can determine, and if we need to move them an inch this way, an inch that way, up and down.
One major change from TSCR is the height of the ion exchange column, or IXC, connections.
The connections are a lot lower. Beforehand we were up high, so it was hard to reach.
Pipe fitter Ivan Howard has also been working on TSCR since it began operations.
So now, being for a pipe fitter standpoint, we can actually work right here and not be stretched up as high, trying to stretch over and be more comfortable.
Getting to the IXC column has even been re-engineered. The door is easier to open and the space is wider and taller, so it's easier to take out or put in the IXC column.
So the forklift won't have to get exactly perfectly aligned in order to get the columns into the bay. So it should really streamline the entire ion exchange column change-out process, from disconnecting, moving the column out, moving a new column in, and then reconnecting the column.
Continued input from workers on the design will help make the next generation of waste processing modules safer and more efficient for Hanford's waste treatment mission.
So, I hope you appreciated this presentation. It shows you that we are working very hard with our craft. Yesterday, we took out a bunch of our facility representatives. We were out there about 2 hours with Randy Havner. A couple of weeks later or earlier, we had more people out there. And so we really ensured for amps, that we're getting the right craft, the right people. And they're very open and honest with what they think will work and other recommendations. So with that, that's where we are with amps.
Thank you. So before we jump to board questions, I'd like to give the agencies really want a chance to provide a perspective, starting with Dan Dunn.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Janet, for you and your team to present all of this. The first thing I'd like to mention, and I thought I heard Rob Davis potentially speak about West Side. What you're seeing today is an East Side initiative. That's not to say that the amps or the characteristics of something like amps won't be the same on the West Side, but at this particular point, what you're looking at is East Side only. At this particular time, and Janet, I'll need your help on this, the milestone, which is M6256, shows August of next year for submission of permit application and construction information. Do you anticipate beating that milestone, Janet?
I think that's a possibility at this point. I mean, right now, quite frankly, with the reduction in force that's upcoming, we have had quite a few people leaving the Department of Energy. There's another wave coming through. So I think what it ultimately is that is an opportunity. We plan for that, but we've got to get through the reduction in force and find out who's here and who has left. And that's something that is unknown at this time.
Okay, thank you, Janet. So for you HAB members, you might want to remember that August of next year is the TPA requirement for those documents to be submitted to Ecology. So in terms of timeline, you can have that as a reference point.
You put your slide on the phone.
Okay. What I would also offer is that as you see everything there, and again, this goes back to a conversation that Janet and I had quite a while ago, the capacity of this amps, plus if needed, the TSCR, should be what is needed to support the throughput requirements of the law facility. We certainly don't know yet, but it's hopeful that with this equipment in place on the east side, we can run the law facility in direct feed mode, essentially uninterrupted, and get to processing some waste. And that's what I have for today. Ryan, anything from you?
No, thank you, Dan. And just to do a check, do we have anyone from EPA that would like to provide perspective? I think we're ready to go to questions from the committee. So if you're in the room, you can signal with your physical hand. If you're online, you can signal with your team's hand. So right now we have Pam, Rob, Matt, and Mia. Go ahead, Pam.
Rob, why don't you start?
Okay. Thanks. This is a really good presentation. Like I said, as you see a lot of the stuff on the mock-up that I would like to see. I really want people to go see that. I think it's important. So there's a number of questions that have come up. One is, what is the backlog needed for LAW processing to guarantee that it can run continuously? Because we're filling one tank, right? The 106, and that's going to be the feed tank or some route similar to feed the LAW facility. So these machines, the modules do need to be taken up for maintenance. Mm-hmm. So like I said, is what kind of backlog do you have necessary to keep the LAW running to its rated production rate?
Yeah,
I could like to cover that. So AP 106 is our feed tank for the law facility. So right now it's got a little over 830,000 gallons of pre-treated waste available for the bit plant. We're going to do one more batch later in May, so next month. And so we'll be topped off with that tank. So that tank had no modules running at all. It can last for 90 days.
Okay.
And so that is our buffer. So we will have two modules that can run either simultaneous or one on, one on. So we'll always have 5 gallons per minute feeding into that AP106. So I think with combined with that 90-day storage capacity, and modules that can operate simultaneous or off, alternate.
Right.
We feel like we're in a good position to continuously feed the big plant.
So what is the micron size of the filters, the limits that we're filtering to?
I don't have that information.
The reason why I asked that is that I know that one of the technical issues on the WTP was also the erosion corrosion issues having to do with particle sizes. Particle sizes on the ultra filters were down to the 10th of a micron. I don't believe our filters are at that level, are they?
I don't know the number exactly, but I know we do meet the WAC requirements. So WTP has an interface control.
Right.
So whatever we send them has to be waste acceptance criteria. So the particle size would be part of that.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, because I figured we'd have a little bit of a problem there just because of the difference between the fixed filters and the temporary filters that we have.
Right, can I add to that?
Yeah.
Our Mont Media Grade 5 is the same as their Mont Media Grade 5. And so the filter size was selected based off of equaling that is already in WTP.
Okay. And then a question that somebody had asked me before, can you describe the settling? Because you are getting particles. And so you are going to get gravity settling over time in 106. Do you have any comments on that? What you've seen there?
I don't have any comments on that. I know we have a waste transfer group that, deals with all of those kind of issues, but as far as what the AMPS functionality is to pre-treat it and put it in 106. There's another program that samples and make sure we're qualified to send any waste over to them.
Well, one of the things is Richard Bloom is terribly interested in understanding the settling, largely because of his history at the site and finding that once you load liquid into it and you leave it there for 24 or 48 hours, the particles settle at the bottom, giving you local hotspots as opposed to the bulk measurement. So an answer to that would be very important sometime. Because I know Richard is going to be. Thank you.
And Pam.
Okay, well, of course, we're all alarmed with what's going on with this administration and its impact on Hanford. Will TSCR continue to operate while you are procuring and building the new house facility?
Yes.
Yes. So, I guess that's my main concern. We just don't know what's gonna happen.
Right, but the crew is out there working tank site cesium removal and so we anticipate it to continue. We have plant status meetings on a daily basis that gives us what's going on, not only just at TSCR, but around the area that we all work. So I personally am not concerned about tank site cesium removal because we have an amazing craft out there as well as the managers. And we routinely go out there and do checks on ourselves.
That's encouraging, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we have a question online from Matt.
I have 2 quick questions and then a longer one, which I'll circle back to after Mia gets a chance here. What is the strontium removal efficiency of the new AMPS system? Strontium 90.
I don't have a number on that. That would be more kind of engineering specific question.
Okay, not even a range, anything like that?
No.
Okay. The second question then, and this is more to Dan and perhaps y'all. Did I hear that TSCR is going to remain there after AMPS as kind of like a backup or supplemental flow if needed? Was that what I understood earlier?
Good morning, Matt. That is certainly one of the options that's being discussed. Exactly what we end up with once we get into production is not yet known, but Tisker could be, if everything works out, a backup or a supplemental use facility set for the east side.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all.
And then to Mia.
Hello. I have many questions, so I can also go to the end of the queue if it gets too much, or go after Matt's other longer question. But just a few basic questions. When are you expecting for AMPS to start operating?
Right now, we're looking at the late 2028 timeframe. We have moved it. It was out in 2030, and we're working to accelerate that into 2029 and possibly into late 2028.
Okay, and how long is the facility designed to operate?
25 years.
Okay. And I know for Tisker, there was that there'd be maintenance outages that occurred every 25 to 30 days. How are you estimating that? It sounds like the batches are going to be longer. So how long will the batches run, and then how long will the maintenance outages happen?
So like you said, Tisker is, let's say, roughly up a month, down a month right now for maintenance. So the longer batches are gonna be about 20% longer runs. So that'll add another, I don't know if it'll be quite a week, but a few more days to get that additional volume. And are optimizing the maintenance. We'll see how much reduction we get. We're shooting for like 2 weeks to downtime. That's our goal. But with the optimization of the mock-ups, the feedback from the craft, we won't really see the full realization of that until it's implemented. But that's our goal, is to minimize it down to 2 weeks.
Okay, so you're just estimating that a batch would take about a month and a week in the new AMP system, and then you're hoping that the maintenance outages would be just to 2 weeks. Is that correct?
That's our goal, yeah.
Okay. I can wait and let Matt go and then circle back around to my follow-up questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
During the presentation, can you go back to the diagram of the actual AMPS system there for me?
That's the moment. That's what I'm looking for.
That's the one. That's the one. I saw that roll-up door there, and I kind of have a question if the internal units, the internal process units, are also modular. I just noticed you have the roll-up door right there next to the caustic tank. So I was kind of wondering about the design decision around that, and whether it's hard to tell from here whether the unit itself has a containment system built in, such as a false floor or some kind of volume that can sit at the floor in case there's a caustic leak or something of that matter.
Put that Randy.
Okay, so this is Randy. The roll-up doors specifically to support the addition of caustic. Currently, Tisker has drums that are brought in on a drum dolly. And it's very, very ineffective. And so AMPS will be designed with a mother-daughter tote system, where the daughter tote will be brought in, set on top, and drained into the bigger tote. And what that will do is give us longer running capacity without change out, or without having to add caustic. There is a catch basin, and it's kind of hard to see on this diagram, but just outside of the tote, there's a fully compliant catch basin for the chemicals in case there is a leak. And so that catch basin is a record compliant catch. Did I answer that question?
You did, but I have one follow on there, and that was very, very good, and I do appreciate the not having to move rather heavy things of caustic, tilting my drop side around. Um, what is the change out schedule, or what's the predicted change out schedule? How often do those caustic tanks need to be taken out, or refilled or replaced? Excuse me.
So the thought right now is that probably every campaign or every batch will require a change out. And that all depends on how frequent the backwashes are gonna have to be. How effective does the filter remove? If they're on a 9-hour backwash schedule, so every 9 hours, one of the filters has to be backwashed. That's gonna be less use than if they're on a 2-hour backwash schedule. And so we're really anticipating that the addition will have to be once per campaign versus, or once per change out or batch versus the multiple times that a drum would have to be replaced.
Good. I like that timing. That sounds really well thought out. I appreciate that. And perhaps another esoteric question about your air dryer system. It looks like those are sized so that they can be replaced if need be through the shower opening.
There's actually a man door on the other side of the water tank. That would be the access part for that.
Okay.
The shower opening will pretty much be an emergency access to the shower if an event happens outside the wall.
All right. Thank you for all that. I appreciate it.
And then back to me again.
Thank you. Just a clarifying question about the operation dates. That was my understanding was calendar years, late 2028, 2029, not fiscal year.
It's calendar year.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of the Tisker ion exchange columns, how often do they need to be switched out? Is it 5 years? Is that accurate?
So we replace 2 columns every, so like we were talking earlier, you process for a month and then you're down for a month. So when you're down for that month, what takes up that month time? Well, part of that is pulling those 2 columns that are spent out and put them on the storage pad, and then putting 2 new clean columns into the module for the next batch. So once it's spent, the ion exchange column is designed for a 50-year life, as well as the storage pad it sits on. So that is I think that's the question you were asking, how long is the life of a column?
Yeah, so you can only use a column, you're using a new column every single month?
Yeah, you're replacing 2 every month. That's right.
And putting them on the storage pad?
Putting them on the storage pad, yep.
Okay.
Recycle.
So are you expecting to get a longer lasting, like with the AMP system, are you able to load those columns any more than the Tisker columns? Like load them more before you switch them out?
Yeah, the plan is so, like we mentioned in that presentation, that we plan to implement, I'd say a dial for simplicity to alternate the flow rate. So Tisker runs at a set 5 gallons per minute. So that's not going to change in Tisker. So that utilization of the column is what it is. But for amps, we plan to have the ability to have a lower flow rate and a higher flow rate. The purpose of the lower flow rate is kind of right in line with what you're thinking. If you go slower, process the waste through the column slower, you get better cesium, more cesium removed from the waste because it has a little more settling time. And so you get more utilization from each column. So that was one of the main drivers for the lower flow rate, is so we get better utilization of each column.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm curious about the leak detection system. Is it going to be similar to Tisker? It's my understanding that it's right now for Tisker, 7 gallons per hour within the hoses within 24 hours is when the leak detection system is triggered. Is it going to be something similar or different?
Very similar. Yeah.
Okay. And is there any more talk of what happens to those the ion exchange columns? What's their final disposition? Is there any more understanding around that?
So there are some milestones that are out there that are to define that final disposition path that has not been fully determined.
Okay.
So I think that's where that 50 years of time, buys a lot of time to figure that out.
Yep. And do you know off the top of your head how many columns can be stored on the pad in 200 East?
Yeah, 160.
Total? That's the
160.
total.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I just have one more question. Sorry. So this whole AMP system, I know Dan kind of alluded to it. Is this what you're planning for 200 West as well in the warm area project? And can we kind of imagine this same system occurring in 200 West?
Yes.
Yeah, can I take that one? Yeah, there are some things we want to protect. We'd like to have the same technology employed so that we don't have to go develop new technology or improve that technology. We'd like to have the same functional layout. So when operation teams move from one process enclosure to another, they're not confused or mistaken, to minimize the amount of human error in that. We'd like to minimize spare parts, have spare parts that fit multiple machines versus one-offs. And so there's quite, and then safety controls, we'd like to have very similar, if possible, identical safety controls in our new safety and our physical safety elements so that we minimize potential for confusion, conflict, upsets, those kind of things. So we are striving very hard to have very similar. It'd be nice to have them identical, but I don't think the chemistries are going to allow for identical systems, but as similar as possible.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you.
One term I probably didn't use right on this, I could use the term settling time, but I should have used the word residence time when the flow goes through each column. So the more residence time you have, contact of the cesium to the CST, the more it has affinity to attract to each other. So that's the better term to use if you're putting that in any documentation.
Changing mind.
So, who else has a question?
Oh, I wish you guys could stick around for a long time. There's just, it's a lot of things enlightening on this. I do see this. I see that the technology certainly has some challenges, but it's not like it's been unproven. We're using the same resins at nearly all the sites in the country that are processing the waste. It's very popular overseas. So the resin's really not the issue. I just, the mechanics of it and getting it set, being portable, being repeatable, and that is all really good things going forward. So we're real happy with that. We've asked questions though that haven't really been answered over time, and they do affect your systems in that in a lot of the WTP ICDs, these are interface control documents with the site, involve back flushing waste back to the origin or to somewhere back on the site. And that the WTP won't have the ability to store that much water. When we talk about these backflushes, and it kind of came as a surprise about 4 or 5 months ago when I did mention that to a couple of folks, and they were just convinced that there wouldn't be any backflushes. That seemed to be a real issue on the technical issues to get the WTP restarted again from the pause. So there might be some confusion that it lies in that. What are we going to do to keep the pipes clean and backflushes? Because it's a batch check. I mean, you're going to send it over in batches, and then we want a backflush after that. And so, if somebody can bring us those answers, that'd be great. And it does affect your interface with the WTP. So at some point, we're going to have to deal with that. Other than that, I'm just really happy with the progress that we've been making on all of this. And we're right sizing our equipment to the job. And thanks a lot.
You're welcome. No, we appreciate your time.
Before we close that, I'm gonna check for questions. Anyone in the room? Is there anybody online? I think that's it.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all. All right, so for 20 minutes ahead, you want to take a break before we get to subcommittee business?
You guys want to take a 15-minute break?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, okay.
All right. We will be on grade 2. What time you want to break it? 13 minutes.
Break till when?
We'll do. And 10:40.
10:40, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so, what I'd like to do first of all is, and especially the folks online, is, what you learned today in this discussion and what else do you want to know about the AMP system? I think that's real important. And again, if you felt that there was questions unanswered, then, please let us know. So can we go around the table and Susan, want to start?
Oh, no, I'm gonna pass. So one of the things that I thought about, and I forgot to ask, is if they're using AMPS at Savannah Riverside, and if we're getting lessons learned from them or not. That's it.
Well, I do know that, that the resin, the silicon titanate, is a Savannah River or DWPF research product that they are using down there in certain things, not necessarily as an AMP system or a TSCR system, but they're using that resin.
Okay.
That resin came along after the WTP had originally been spec'd and they're starting to build, et cetera. They were going with regular resorcinol resins to separate the cesium out. And when the sodium or the titanate came up, the crystalline titanate, it just was so much better of a bead or a resin that they've all converted to that. So we have one of the very first cycle was on traditional resin. And so we have those canisters in there and all the rest are the titanate. Several years after they started using it in Savannah River, the ceramicists up here in the people working at PNNL decided that they could use it as glass in making glass because it's not organic at all. It's a mineral resin, not an organic resin. So then you want to have the off gases in that. But and that's a great idea. And so Osmussen told us in a presentation years ago that it's conceivable you could just feed the resin right into the HLW waste stream and vitrify it as waste.
Wow.
And so that's what has been predicted as a flow path. But again, as he said, the life for those pads and all that is 50 years. So it's many, many years down the road of, qualifications and testing and things of that sort, but it certainly looked promising. Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, that's all what I know about it. And like I said, I really want folks to, so a fellow named Rob Hastings, who used to work with the Department of Energy, and he was a manager, and he is now a manager at Inventec. And he has invited us out anytime we want to go down and take a look at the mock-up that we saw on the slides. And I did that last week with him, and it's really important, I think, that people recognize that we're getting a little bit better here. We're using our lessons learned. We're doing the mock-ups. We're trying to do it cost effective, bringing the workers in to help do that. So, I just, and now Becky, all of the features in this AMP system make HP so much easier. A lot of non-contact and space and room for clothing and dressing and cleanup. And yeah, it's like different. Yeah, it's really different. Okay, somebody else.
Quick question, is HP health physics?
Yes, all right.
Have you seen it?
Yeah,
Are you?
yeah, I went to the mock-up, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's,
Well, they definitely need to be bigger.
yeah. And so what I'd like to do is get with Rob, and that's the end of this conversation is that after our next meeting in June, okay, I'd like to make it so we as a group or committee or whoever's there can go there and see this mock-up. And just meet them and that sort of thing. It's very, very cool.
That's a good idea.
They're passive? Did they have passive?
No, it's down in the Inventec's
Oh,
big,
okay.
big shop. They built it, wood, and then they have the cylinders, and they even got it to the model where in the previous Tisker, they couldn't really figure out how they're gonna get these great big heavy things out of the Tisker. And so they had to jury rig a bunch of forklifts and work on that. These new ones are all trunnion based. So you're lifting from the top. Okay, and you got trunnions to make it so much easier to drag this thing out and set it on the pad and transport it. Just little things like that are just amazing.
And it's surprising it's taking so long to implement everything. I guess it's just typical DOE, but it sounds like they're ready to go faster.
I'd love to see that. Yeah. But I don't think that in this climate politically that going faster is gonna be an answer for anything. Okay, next.
Brent had mentioned that TISPR AMP system goes up to AP 106, and then that's where their responsibility stops. You, Rob, had talked about possible cesium settling and AP 106 and how that was handled, that kind of brought up that. So I guess I'm curious how waste is managed in AP 106. And I guess maybe there's a document I can look up on that, but it'd be interesting hearing from the team that's responsible for managing that waste on the nuance of getting that from there to WTP and how that passes through waste acceptance criteria. Maybe,
Yeah, like seeing the flow diagram or, how is it gonna go from here to here to here to here?
not necessarily per se, that'd be part of it, but how that waste in AP 106 is managed.
Okay. With respect to settling and or segregation.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Any thoughts you'd like to share?
I know a lot of the issues at Tisker were them not being able to get parts. A lot of the stuff was, outdated or it would break, and then they could, crews would go out to do the work out there and they would say, oh, we can't get those parts anymore. So I'm assuming that this new system is going to have more up to date, robust, mechanical and electrical systems. So I'd like to see their list of lessons learned, actually. I'm sure a lot of it is, the mechanical sides of it, but I'd like to see some of it, like with some of the radiological issues. They have a lot of leaks there, in the piping and contamination incidents. So it'd be interesting just to see what is listed on their lessons learned.
Okay. Got that down.
Anyone online like to share? What did you learn today? And what else would you like to know? Sorry, Matt, thoughts.
Why not?
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
No, I appreciate it. One thing I know that AMPS or TSCR have pretty good affinity for removing strontium as well. I'm curious about that process because I also know that strontium likes to form complexants. So, I kind of wonder how much gets through the fluid treatment versus how much is taken out by filtration. As to lessons learned, I do believe Avantech used this technology in Fukushima rather extensively. So there might be a lot of lessons learned that can be derived from their experience there. But yes, I'm always interested in that. And there was some talk today, the fact that this is a batch process. I'm kind of interested in how they control, especially the sampling of these batch processes to ensure that it's always meeting the criterion in DF law. So we had some problems with AP 106 earlier where it was a little bit too hot and that had to be fixed. So how are we going to control that risk moving forward with AMPS?
Yeah. Yeah, that does. I think that might be the extent of our relatives.
Matt, I'm taking that and putting on the heading that, under our radiological issues for contamination of the tank. Recontamination.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll clean up my words here, but yeah, I'm taking notes of all this so I can add them.
It might be as simple as us just getting back into the flow diagram for DF law, to really see where these processes start and stop or, change hands.
Well, I think, it's ICD 30 and ICD 31 are the actual specifications for Bechtel to deliver. So you might start with that. Yeah. Okay, next on the list then is, okay, so everybody that's online and that should know that, I'm good through this year as far as my being on the board. But I haven't received my letter yet and for next year, so I don't know if I'll be around next year. So, but if I am, I'd like to continue this work because I've got this history here that I really love to see done. But then I promise that'll be my last. In fact, I would love to take a vice chair position in this and have somebody else be the chair to turn over. But so has anybody got any kind of interest in coming along into the TWST committee and working with us? Anybody? Well, of course, this is the first call for any of this, so I would hope people start thinking about it and I realize that some people that are working just can't have that time, but I I'm sure Chris Sutton is gonna be wanting to be a vice chair again if he if that, who knows what we'll do. But, yeah, Chris is a good guy. Okay, so I guess that's good.
So,
I'll cover it.
so Rob, I appreciate your leadership and, yeah, I appreciate you putting the time in. Also, you understand this stuff way better than most of us. So that's a great advantage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any word on the reappointments? Any word on the process?
Working through those, I will say that I don't have any indication that that we would have a delay on those, but yeah, as of now, the appointment letters, you probably won't see them in April. Because I have perspective on how it's been done in the past, I believe that there was kind of like a pre-approval letter that maybe came out in April. I don't think you'll be getting that this month.
I think the last couple of years it's been like July.
Okay.
That we get the official,
Even better.
that, yeah, that Kelly had pushed the process up, so it's basically, we were hitting the packages for out, like, I wanna say around July timeframe.
So is that going to be, before our nominations? And picking new members, committee members, things of that sort?
Problem, well, it's not gonna be if it goes the last couple of years, it's probably not gonna be before leadership workshop.
Okay.
But, so it's kind of up for, up to you guys.
Sure.
But, it's also having the elections is not a limiting factor on attending leadership workshop. Because I've opened up leadership workshop to anybody that is filling leadership position or anybody that's interested in attending a leadership position, because it has turned more into an IM team for developing the work plan and calendar, as opposed to the old days,
Yeah,
when it used to be a 2-day off-site retreat.
Do you have the date for the,
June, right behind the committee meetings.
Yeah, I can go over a quick timeline. So the leadership workshop is June 5th. Our goal going forward, we open nominations here. Get people thinking about it. Anybody that is nominated will confirm that they're willing to serve, and we'll ask them to, save the date for June 5th. This committee and the other committees will try to hold their elections on June 3rd and 4th, so the same week. When we'll hopefully know who will be the next chair and vice chair for TWST and each of the others. Ahead of the leadership workshop, they can all join, they can support development of the work plan, they can learn from the existing chairs if there are any changes, and they would begin in that capacity on October 1st.
And that's the key, because you don't start until October 1st. So it's a case of everything before the September committee meetings is kind of, it's good to have.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a case, you need to have the committee meeting, the elections, at least no later than the September committee meetings.
Matt, do you have a question?
My understanding is that alternate members are not allowed to have leadership positions on the subcommittees. Is that still correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Bummer.
Yeah, it's essentially.
Sorry, Matt.
And
my national liaison position, could someone new come into that?
Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't. We can, not an alternate member, but,
No, that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
The alternate.
not an alternate member.
Alternates cannot serve in leadership positions.
I would consider that as the leadership position. Yeah.
We can change that next year.
Let's not.
I don't know who could do it better though.
Gosh. Well, Craig Cameron is gonna be the alternate for Benton County, and he might just be super in that capacity.
So going forward, we'll be accepting nominations between now and June. If there aren't any submitted now, you can send those to our email. That is hab@slind.net. And there will be an announcement in the next federal weekly updates.
Okay. And so right now, your planning for next meeting is what?
we have a pretty strong idea of what the next meeting will look like, as we had a planning call. So up on the screen is how I believe this meeting will lay out. It starts in the afternoon because it will share a day with CU. So this would be, okay.
Josh, old ice.
Aging workforce.
Age discrimination.
There we go. That's about as big as I can get it. So, this, rather general opening, then we have a particularly long item at 90 minutes that they currently have identified. That is gonna be, the grout bonanza, gonna be the PNL led grout 101, followed by test bed initiative results led by DOE, for regulatory perspectives, and then ample time for questions.
Is that June 4th? I can't see the.
This is June 4th.
Okay.
Yeah, we're looking at lids and CARM on June 3rd, COE and TWST on June 4th, leadership workshop on June 5th. The location has yet to be determined for this. We're going to try to reserve these rooms as soon as they release the date notice. That those 90-minute item, looking at a quick break, we'll all need it. And moving on to subcommittee business. We'll give another go of the discussion and elections. I will try to hold leadership elections. Hopefully we'll have nominees. By this point in time, we should have a draft work plan, since it'll be leading right into that leadership workshop. It's an opportunity for TWST members to provide input to the leadership and either the existing ones or newly elected to take forward to the next day's leadership workshop. And other things as we need it, considering what September might look like, addressing other items that we haven't anticipated.
Right. So, I want to continue on this planning. What I did is I took the 2025 work plan stuff that we had assigned. And then I applied the presentations we received for each one of those work plan items. Okay, and you can see where, if you want to bring that up, and
Yeah.
it's got to be pretty big. Yeah, but I'll talk to it up here. So this goes through 1 through 11 on the subjects that we had talked about wanting to have in this committee, including the last one is a joint one with Liz. But our first issue was to look at log route. And so far, right now, we do expect a presentation for that to be answered in June of coming up. So that's number one. Let's go to number 2. Okay, number 2 is the system plan. This is still, I think it's kind of unfinished work, but we in March this last a year ago, we received the presentation of the system plan. And then we worked with Chris Sutton, which kind of fit into the system plan, the draft for the priorities advice for our, and we passed that, which was a good listing of our advice. But I still don't think that, to me, the issues in the system plan were, I kind of studied it and wrote this long 3-page thing that basically the holistic agreement kind of switched everything up with the TPA, the milestones, the system plan, and the targets, and along with this this floating, way we're going to handle our milestones, our adaptive milestone issues, in that we come close. We're 6 months out from the point of we're going to miss a milestone. And they said, well, we're going to adapt that milestone another year. Okay. And so how do we ever accomplish anything with adaptive milestones? And I think that it has to be used pretty sparingly, or not misused. How's that? Because it'd be a great tool for DOE to be able to do that and not have the pressure of some of the TPA stuff. But on the other hand, I see it as being potentially dangerous. So I think that, we did get the state of Washington Ecology to say that at some point they want to come in and straighten things out. I guess when they did the final signing in January of the holistic agreement, they apparently had worked out some of the timetables. I don't know that that's true or not. I know that Matt went through them pretty seriously and had discovered a number of milestones that were inconsistent with what we know now and what we thought. Okay. And so then number 3 on our list is our direct feed low activity waste program. We received a number of updates on these. The first one was in March 6th of this last year. It was a pretty good of the overall program. Matt Irwin came and gave it to us. It was a pretty good. We also had Susan Dahl and some state people that gave us a good feeling of it. Though I think the more important thing on the direct feed LAW is this one here. We got the beginning discussion started last August on the EPDT testing. That's the environmental performance testing. Those tests should have been completed this month, maybe last month, something like that. So we're gonna need to see some retouch of that, some meeting in the near future. And then we also got a overall treatment plant update briefing by Paul Schroeder from DOE, which also involved a lot of the DF law. And go to the next one. This one here, lessons learned. We still have not had that presentation. We've asked for the lessons learned. We would like to see, I guess we'd like to see it, or we'd like to understand how that reflection into the past and how to improve it for the future. And so this is an area that I think that we need to stress for this next year, if we can, the lessons learned. And, you know, not pushing you, but
No, yeah, and I want to say, I'll double check that. I thought that might be a committee meeting topic for September. I think I've somewhat confirmed that already.
okay,
If it's not in September, it will be in the fall.
okay.
So we
Well,
got that.
that's great. You know, it's working. The next one is here, the amps. So we did get our presentation today on the amps from Janet. I think that there's a few questions that I took some notes down and maybe, I'll get time and I'll condense them. Focus areas. Oh yeah, wait, okay, the worm, okay. We need to see more information on the worm, okay, because, that's the west area, site. They have, a number of tanks out there. They only have 3 double shell tanks out there. And so maybe we'd like to have some presentations on the flow diagrams, what's gonna go to where, and maybe a confirmation of the thoughts that we're gonna put another amp system out there in the West Farms to handle that, the worm. We also need to know and identify the 22 tanks that we have a commitment to clean up by 2048, I think, or something like that, from the west area. TBI, we've got a scheduled briefing coming up, which is good. Yeah, like I said, it's scheduled for June. Maybe that's her. Tank integrity program. We had some really good talks in the tank integrity program. Some of them were a bit skinny and had lots of questions, but we had 3 presentations basically on the tank integrity. We heard and actually saw in our tour, but we heard from Kevin Boomer and the contractors that they've been working on a way of extending the life of a leaking tank. If they can identify where the leak is, they can get to the outside of that tank and apply a bunch of metal line to plug up that leak. Okay, and so they can finish getting the waste out of that tank. And that was a very good presentation. You It's, of course, only for double shell tanks, because you got to get access to all around it to do that. Single shell tanks, it's still not there yet. We also had a great talk on the Newcon, that's the vapor abatement system, which had passed and got themselves into a demonstration permit. We're gonna need an update on that demonstration permit and how it's going and what the final plans are for that, okay? And then we had another one from Tank Integrity Program, a discussion in the last year ago, January. And we talked with Eric Nelson and Jason Gunter, and they talked a lot about the general process of looking at the tanks, inspecting the tanks, gaining knowledge on the tanks. But they're still not to the point where they can guarantee a life on some of these things. And we do know we've got problems in our tanks. We've got exposed rebar in the ceilings, it's falling out. We've got cracks in some of the floors and some of the tanks that have been decommissioned. So we still, a lot of work still needs to be done there. Okay, the next one is we had a presentation on retrievals is another one where we have no information yet on the order of retrievals. This might go hand in hand by dividing one set of retrievals for finishing up on east side and the other for what we're going to begin processing on the west side. Maybe some basic flow diagrams or things like that, but people have asked for that. The number 10 item, okay, we had the previous year, we had a presentation on barriers. And we had been told that the first, a barrier, what it is it covers the land around the tanks. Okay, a set of tanks in a tank farm. And the intention is to divert all rainwater, snow, all those kind of things away from the tanks, which would then lead us to believe that the water's not driving contaminants into the water table. So, but they've had to they're replacing one. They're one of their first ones they did. They're replacing it with a different kind of bituminous barrier. And so we probably could see an update on some of those because those barriers are going to be very important from the standpoint of Westmore. When, you know, we're still going to be emptying tanks in 25 to 30 years from now. So it's the barrier's going to have to last. And the last one here is we have not got a real good handle on this yet, or at least I don't have a good handle on it. The cross-site transfer lines, and it's really probably a joint discussion with lids. I've heard people saying that, oh, we're just gonna load them in a truck, load the liquid waste from west area and truck it over to the WTP. You know, then there's other ones, we're gonna have hose and hose transfer lines, 7 miles of it. Or we're gonna end up with pipe and pipe. The cost goes extremely high with pipe and pipe, a big one. So, so I think that those are all things that maybe the site's struggling with, trying to figure out some logical discussion on that point. But I think that we need to start hearing about this because this is going to be important. The first line they got to run water out to east or west area. First, just drinking water or shower water or water. The second one they wanted to bring in is the supernate line, okay, which again, how are you going to flush it? What are you going to use? And then the third line will be the slurry line. And the slurry line is probably the most troublesome from the standpoint that it was a key technical issue in the development of the WTP was pipe erosion by slurry. And so the WTP had to go to great lengths in pre-treat to massage, blend, crush, to make that waste uniform, filter it, and that. So this list of the items that our committee has been looking at some point, and What else do I want to say about this? I think we've had lots of really good presentations, you know, they're very, very, very good. There's some that, my only desire would be is that in some cases, when the speaker says, okay, I'll get back to you on that. Can we get them to get back to us? Because they're not getting back to us. And so anyway, okay, how about it, guys? What else do we need?
How about an update on HL?
Oh, great. Okay, that was on my other list. Okay, I had two items that I kind of wanted to bring in. One is, can we get a briefing on the currently planned HLW flow sheet? And then the second thing is, update, Warren, update us on Warren.
They hired a bunch of people at HLW.
Yeah.
In the past year.
And I just had a near miss out there, 3 weeks ago.
What do you mean?
Like they dropped something and the employees were all, or like, you know, within the fall zone. Dropped it. I think it was a Best Solar, so. Not exactly sure what it was, but it was a, oh shit.
In HLW?
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
they did it. They had like a work stand now, I think the next day, you know, pause.
Right.
So they could talk about safety, but apparently they had like 3 of them. Yeah. So the safety. He's trying to get back on track there, you know.
We need to talk to Rob Parmalee. Rob! I don't think he's on anymore.
What were you asking about SY Farm, about where the 3 double shell tanks are in West area? What was your,
Well,
I wasn't sure what your.
my thought is that, you know, there's all the tanks in West area are single shell with the exception of 3.
Right.
And if they're gonna run a Tisker-like operation, those 3 have to stay sound, clean, you know, ready for receiving that. And that is the concern, is that, you know, about every 5 years, we get another leak and another leak and another leak. And of course, our inspections are not 100% on these vessels. And so, yeah.
Yeah, so you do remember 101 SY was the burping tank.
Yes. Yeah.
That-
Yeah.
So, yeah,
But it doesn't work anymore.
no,
No, we've handled that, but.
that was the first tank that a mixer pump was ever installed in the
Okay.
campus site. One of the large
Right.
pumps, yeah,
Okay.
back in the 90s.
Well, that would be an advantage if we're getting settling on the AMPS product.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering about when mixing of 8.6.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you think we need to hear about next year?
Well, there's a couple big things, as you know, Oregon's always interested in milestone M 6264, which is coming due at the end of this year, about the 200 West tanks and how those are going to be treated. Also, one thing that just should have gone to ecology is M45136, which is the retrieval technology work plan, which would flow in quite well with Rob's tank integrity program. I think. So I'm very interested in those because DOE should have submitted their work plan for that just late last month. I want to say the 30th was what that was scheduled for. So yeah, they're
Ask for some potential briefings on those 2 milestones.
Yep. I think that those are still ripe and a good thing. And there was, I know this is for June and it might be a little late to get in there, but if we're talking about grout, they just had the supplemental analysis released, and I'm hearing that they're expecting the WEIR for 200 West to be released soon. You know, there's some H2C documents I'd really like to take a look at that aren't available because they're wrapped up in the WEIR. So I would, you know, I'd really like them to add some of that material if they can within the grouting, you know, what they envision the grouting out there to look like? Time frames. Are they going to, you mentioned trucking to WTP, right? Are they going to start with trucking because, you've got to have time to build a facility if you're going to build it, but that decision isn't going to be made till December anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
The rear issue is very important.
Yeah. So I would think that the weir would be a joint discussion, maybe committee of the whole or something of that sort. Not this particular committee.
For the 200 West Tanks weir is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So there will be a public meeting on that. And I just would encourage you guys all to come to that public meeting.
Is that on the 25th? That's the one coming up?
It's tentatively scheduled for April 23rd. It's been a little bit of a moving target, so just keep your eyes open for updates on when that comment period does open.
Okay.
And, Jennifer, why I have you here is I do appreciate the extension in the comment period for the essay, because we didn't have access to some of those documents that, I really think are critical when evaluating that essay as well.
Welcome. Thank you.
There was also a discussion, I believe I talked to Pam about this, at one of the big, no, I guess maybe I talked to you. Anyway, at a national meeting, where our representatives went, then there was a discussion by the DOE transportation people.
That was at the chairs meeting last year.
The chairs meeting. Love to get them here to talk to us about transportation of waste, whether it's going to Utah or whether it's going to Texas. And have the people come in and talk to us about how it's going to be done, how they're going to monitor, what kind of notifications are going to people get made, what kind of emergency response, and if necessary, is going to happen. So to me, that's all fruit for us to hear about.
That feels like a Liv's topic thing, the bee disposition.
I would, yeah.
That might happen in the relatively near future, couldn't it?
I love it. Yeah, I think it really needs to.
I think they don't want to talk to anybody, they just want to do it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I just see us as slowing down because of this when, we stuff all over the United States, we take the safest routes and that sort of thing and.
Well, also the risk of the material that's gonna be moved is quite small.
Yeah.
It's not like when we started shipping fruit.
Yeah. So, Jennifer, did you take that potentially, committee of the whole or, somebody, a Lids committee action or something?
We're still talking about the weir.
Yeah.
The timing on that, so with the public meeting in the 90-day-ish comment period, I guess I just don't foresee committee of the whole being an option at this point. Just encouraging you all to go to the public meeting. We do have the committee of the whole on the 324 building coming up in May. So I don't foresee being able to do another committee of the whole to be timely for you all.
Okay,
At least on the weir.
Yeah,
on the weird.
I mean, we do have 2 committee of the wholes in the work plan.
right.
Well, I think the big thing for us would be just understanding it, rather than giving you advice on it. But, we could do that in a November meeting if we wanted to, or something next year. But we do need to flesh out.
To receive an update.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that would probably be okay to add to the work plan as a potential topic to receive an update on. But in terms of if you're wanting to pass advice on that or even submit public comments, that comment period is happening.
right
Now,
right.
I'm waiting any day now.
I don't know if I have any advice on it other than I just think out of people not knowing things, chances for rumors and all kinds of stuff gonna come up. And the more we know, the better off we're happier.
Yeah, and I think I would love to have your notes and stuff on the work plan, so we can take a look at that too as we start to look at our the draft work plan to bring to you all, so.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Could we include in the, I'll just have it included in the notes, but could you, make sure that they say that one is that we want want a briefing on the currently planned HLW flow sheet?
Yep.
Okay, and then the other one would be update on the preliminary action for the warm and the 22 tanks. Okay, which are the lucky 22 tanks?
So next year, when I'm gone, I think you should ask for a briefing on what the, people from WIP are doing in Hanford. Because the WIP site manager told me last summer that he had 12 people here already that are working on getting ready to ship the WIP.
Right.
And so 12 people is a lot of work effort. What are they doing?
Yeah.
Just an informational briefing.
But wouldn't that fall under Karn?
I'm sorry, I'm not into the new committee structure, so I'm tossing ideas out there.
Because Carmen lives, but
But we haven't had an update on the WIP, or on transuranic waste shipment since in a couple of years, so.
Right.
There-
So just say next year,
Nope.
you should ask for it.
so Matt, what'll stay after the twist work plan?
Well, I want to, piggyback on some of the things Pam said here. We have the true shipping campaign that's coming back up here soon. And while it might be a CARM issue, the folks at WIP are highly experienced in these shipping campaigns and would be quite qualified to talk about transportation, even if it doesn't directly relate to WIP in this case. We might need them and maybe one person to point out how this material or how the potential SLAW, low-level waste, or supplemental low-level waste shipping campaign would be different. But the folks at True would be able to really illustrate the care and protection that DOE takes when doing these major campaigns.
Yes.
So, pending further cuts and should they still be around, I would see them as a valuable resource that we should call on for transportation information.
Good idea.
Any other burning needs that need to be considered in the next draft work plan?
Sounds pretty, complete and a lot.
Yeah.
You get everything you need out of that, Jeff?
Well, we'll get a draft and then we'll talk about it and we'll say, oh, and there may be an urgent issue that happen. Yeah.
A living document, right?
Yeah.
We'll have several chances to take a look and we'll just have a chance to identify anything that's missing.
But I appreciate the fact that now it takes so long to get presenters here and prepared that now we're talking now about next year here in April. And so I think that we're good on the game. I think that that's plenty of time for folks to really get it. Okay.
And we still have to run the presentations you give us through headquarters on OMB.
Yeah, in fact, I believe it used to be kind of like a 2-week turnaround time. We're building in no less than 5 weeks at this point. I think this too shall pass, and maybe we'll get back to business as usual, but Josh is helping us do a good job of making sure we get agendas and all presentations up to headquarters in a timely manner so we can get agendas out on the web 2 weeks before your guys' meeting. So it's been an adjustment.
Working now.
Maybe this will be one thing that could be by new people.
Can you remind me when the board meeting, so there's the board meeting and then the following day is the committee of the whole?
Yeah,
Right.
May 7th and 8th.
May 7th and 8th,
Yeah.
okay. I was looking at my calendar and it just said my event. I wasn't sure what.
Have all day.
Good.
Yeah, we can't change that either because I got a fishing Couple days later. I was like,
There's a virtual option.
I don't, he gets out in the ocean.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Matt, what else do you have?
Oh, I don't know if this is part of it. I just wanted to hear something one more time. April 23rd, there's a public meeting, and that's on the 200 West Weir.
Well, it's not confirmed, it's tentative, it's sort of what we're shooting for right now. But I will just be transparent and say that that has continued to be a moving target. So, your guess is as good as mine if we're gonna stick to that date as of now.
Okay.
Being a little bit close, we're 2 weeks out from that, so I get a little bit nervous that we haven't started the comment period yet, in order to have that meeting. So we'll evaluate again early next week and, see where we're at. Just know it's coming.
And you are aiming to have this on the AR, the administrative record, ahead of that meeting, 2 weeks or so, you think?
Well, 2 weeks would be today. And it's
Today, I
not.
know.
And this one does require a federal register notice, so that's part of the process as well. And there's a process for that at headquarters and, takes some time there. So, feel free to reach out if you've got a burning question about that next week. I can give another update on it. But it doesn't appear that we'll start that this week, that comment period, so.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it and the life cycle cost and scope report for 2025. You know, I keep an eagle eye out for that one, refreshing every so often. But thank you again.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was mentioned yesterday, but I'll go ahead and share with you that April 15th is when we plan to put out that life cycle report. So we will get that forwarded to the HAB as well.
Are we gonna get a briefing on life cycle report?
It is not in the plans.
Huh.
There's a 60-day feedback period on that, and it's not on your agenda. I don't even believe it's on the work plan.
It's not on the plan. And at least as long as I've been here, we haven't had a presentation on that before, though we did have Chris volunteer to go over that.
Right.
And I report back a summary to condense the 500 pages into something digestible.
Wow.
Well, yeah, you know, I just don't know how much more accurate they can be than the documents already published. You know, we've, stretching this out to 2078. I kind of felt that, I just want to say, okay, at 2078, at 3 billion a year, okay, you adjust any one of those options by more than a couple of years of delay. For example, what's going on now, that they're all even. They all come out the same. And so it's like, there's so many unknowns. And I just want to, I believe the fact that slaw and low activity waste can be grouted and can be sent to a safer place than the Hanford site for final disposal. I think that's an answer that we want to do, and we can do that so much faster with a phased approach that we can start routing now and shipping it down either as grouted or routed, and then and move on. And when I was with Bechtel, we put a grout plant up in 2 months.
For the tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, it was 2 months and it was just one of those things that it's not that difficult. There's stuff you can buy off the shelf. Granted, nothing's radiation hardened and we got all the radioactive things in there, but it can't take more than 11 years. And if we start now, we get 11 years jump on getting rid of a lot of low activity waste. And that's my belief. And the sooner we embrace it and start doing it, the better off we are.
Welcome those as public comments and these open up. Thank you.
We know, have an idea of what we're looking at next year. We know what we're looking at in April. Everyone knows to start thinking about nominees for next year's leadership. Is there any other twist business we need to cover?
Just that, I will work as hard as I can to let people know that we'll get a tour of the AMPS facility in June. So want people to show up and let's go down there, talk with Rob. He'll introduce you to his staff and
We can just drive ourselves.
you can drive yourself and, yeah.
And Rob, just a suggestion, if we've still got travel, constraints, maybe it's worth pushing into October and becoming part of the annual tour that we always do. So that could be an option as well. I would just remain flexible, so you can get what you want out of that.
So meaning that you would take over the responsibility of talking with Rob and making
Getting it on the agenda.
and doing that? Exactly.
June is just around the corner.
Yeah.
So I don't know what,
Yeah.
travel and stuff will work for
Yeah,
by then.
yeah. Well, when I see him next, I'll mention that, give you a call. He'll be able to find you.
Yeah, I've got his card, so I will, reach out to him.
Oh, that's good. Good.
So I have a question with Candace's departure. Who's leading EM in Washington DC?
I just actually got an email. Roger Jarrell has been selected to serve as EM's Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary effective immediately. It just came in a few minutes ago. That is all.
I think he was with the Trump administration and the previous administration.
Might have been.
And he's a really good guy.
Kim, I believe it. I think you know better than I do about who's who in the zoo.
I mean, I think he was excellent. Unless there's somebody that's Gerald or Jared in their name.
I don't know if he's been asked one. I don't.
I'm just, so there's a Roger Jarrell that's now EM.
I've heard his name before.
Yeah, and I think he was with the Trump administration previously. I'm just trying to remember what it was. I'll just run my trap line so I can find that out. But I mean, the names are not bad that I'm hearing coming into DOE. So, and they're saying good things about us. So that's excellent. And New Nuclear.
I don't see where it gives his background on where he.
I can find that out real quickly.
So I just wanted to bring up that yesterday I got volunteered to write a note thanking Brian Vance and that sort of thing. So I kind of started it a little bit, but I want to send it, who wants to read it and add, but
A note to him on behalf of,
he's retired.
I get that, on behalf of who though?
The board,
Oh, the board.
yeah.
Shouldn't that come from him?
Well, she volunteered me.
Okay.
I volunteered him to write.
Okay, yeah, so, but it's not coming from you or your committee, it's coming
No,
from,
right.
okay.
So his departure is next week, is that right?
The 24th, or week after, I think.
Has someone been appointed to take over in the interim or?
No, I will say that it's been confirmed that Brian Parkins will provide the agency update at the May full board meeting.
Okay. That's.
I thought he already left.
No, that's.
Stickney has already.
Sticky left.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, B2 left. B3 has been waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
I nicknamed it.
It's the trifecta.
Yeah, it was the B3.
Yeah.
B cubed.
Would people think though that maybe Brian wouldn't want that? Just because he's trying to clear town here so fast.
That he wouldn't what?
Wouldn't want us to recognize what he's doing or his success or are we interfering with his plans? That's the question.
That we should write a letter about Brian Vance, is that what
Yeah.
you think? Oh, gosh, we should, absolutely.
Okay,
I support it. I encourage it.
okay.
It's great.
Yeah, I just, sometimes I get carried away in my mind. I start thinking about stuff and I should spit out.
We'll all be sending him our thanks as well. So
Okay.
he'll appreciate a letter from you all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Statements?
Done?
Almost.
Oh, sorry, man.
I don't want to end this on a downer because I also would look forward to a tour of the AMPS facility. Will there still be restrictions on travel compensation should the many people that are not local to the Tri-Cities, Quad Cities area want to join in on that fun?
Yes, so until we lift that restriction, if you choose to come here before that's been lifted, your travel will not be reimbursed. So that's, I think, we were talking about possibly putting that on a fall timeline for the annual tour. And we'll just have to remain flexible and see what has been lifted.
Annual tour or part of the committee meeting, something after, once we get through this transition period.
I recommend waiting until people can travel.
Yeah.
Right.
More benefit.
Right.
I hate to end on the down note because it's such a good meeting otherwise.
No, you're not, Matt, it's okay. Basically, yes, that was just part of the previous discussion, was to try and, make sure that we can get as many people interested in attending the tour there, and recognizing that there are people like you that are out of town that would, need to travel. So let's get through the travel budget hurdle first.
Yeah, I'd like to, everybody know that if you got any other ideas, even on the screen, folks, got other ideas you want to include in this committee work, email me or send them to Josh. Josh will get them to me. We'll try to talk about them. Thanks, everybody, for showing up.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy this beautiful day.